The evolution of baseball from older bat and ball games is difficult to trace with precision. It has long been believed that cricket also descended from such games, though evidence uncovered in early 2009 suggests that cricket may have been imported to England from Flanders. The earliest known reference to baseball is in a 1744 British children's publication, A Little Pretty Pocketbook by John Newbery, which contains a rhymed description of baseball and a woodcut that shows a field setup somewhat similar to the modern game. The once widely accepted story that U.S. Army officer Abner Doubleday invented baseball in Cooperstown, New York in 1839 has been conclusively debunked by sports historians. The Doubleday myth appeared after a dispute arose about the origins of baseball and whether it had been invented in the United States or developed as a variation of rounders. The theory that the sport was created by the U.S. was backed by Chicago Cubs president Albert Spalding and National League president Abraham Mills, and in 1889 Mills gave a speech declaring that baseball was American, which he said was determined through patriotism and research. A crowd of about 300 people responded by chanting, "No Rounders!" The Rounders theory was supported by prominent sports writer Henry Chadwick, a native of Britain who noted common factors between rounders and baseball in a 1903 article. In 1905, Spalding called for an investigation into how the sport was invented. Chadwick supported the idea, and later in the year, the Mills Commission was formed. Spalding instructed the commission to decide between the American game of Old Cat and rounders as baseball's predecessor. 7 men served on the commission, including Mills. Spalding chose the committee's members, picking men who supported his theory and excluding supporters of the Rounders claim, such as Chadwick. In 1845, Alexander Cartwright, a member of New York City's Knickerbocker Club, produced a code of baseball rules now known as the Knickerbocker Rules. The rules thus facilitated the use of a smaller, harder ball that had been common, and several other rules had brought the Knickerbockers game closer to the modern one, though a ball caught on the first bounce was an out and only underhand pitching was allowed. While there are reports that the New York Knickerbockers played games in 1845, the contest, long recognized as the first officially recorded baseball game in U.S. history, took place on June 19, 1846 in Hoboken, New Jersey. The New York Nine defeated the Knickerbockers 23-1 in 4 innings. With the Knickerbocker Code as the basis, the rules of modern baseball continued to evolve over the next half-century. Like I've alluded to in videos from the past, the first 4 months of the year can be difficult to get through for film fans. Most of the films in this desert are problems that the studios dumped, or indie films that didn't work out but may capture a cult audience. In a way, I've actually grown to like this part of the year because it feels natural. It's like when winter comes, of course winter will come. It's not my favorite season, but I'd be pretty freaked out if I didn't have it. Now, as a film reviewer, would I prefer all the best films be a little more spread out and not packed into one ridiculously busy 4-month window? Yeah, maybe, but it is what it is. I'm on a side tangent. The point is, Eephus is by far the best film of the last 3 months, and a gem in the rough that will almost certainly continue to grow in prestige. I'm serious, I'd be surprised if this isn't in my top list of the year, and it's a film that I'll be going back to a lot. Like, this is easily one of the best sports movies ever made. It's not the highest bar, but it is a bar, and this movie hops right over it. Eephus is the story of a group of middle-aged men that play their last recreational baseball game before their field gets torn down to build a school. It's a confined story, one that takes place entirely on the field. Now, the first thing I want to primarily focus on here is the conflict, because while it's a fairly simple premise, I think it's one that should be looked at for people who want to write stories for a living. As I've said in the synopsis, we're talking about the death of a recreational baseball field, something that's seldom used by a group of misfit toys who probably should be doing other things with their lives. It's being replaced by a school, so that children don't have to drive over 25 miles to get their education. So the replacement is pretty much objectively the right decision. But that doesn't take away from the emotion of the players, does it? In a way, it's a simple premise, but actually the emotions that go through your head are quite layered and complex. This movie, more than almost any other film, shows what sport is all about. It's about loving something that you know deep down in your heart doesn't matter, but caring about it anyway. And to me, that's a beautiful human story. Why do they care? Because they're searching for something to care about, something to love. Now, it's very rarely expressed in the film like that, but that only adds to the writer's ability to characterize what's going on. Because while they feel this love of the park, they are also constantly criticizing that love, calling it stupid, dismissing it, addressing it as it really is. This is a good allegory for the struggle to care in real life, asking yourself why you do the things you do and continuing on knowing that the end is coming, in your life and to this little baseball field. The way this film was written, it absolutely never took emotional shortcuts or gave easy answers. It was consistently excellent at creating situations without being judgmental towards them. One of the ways in which I saw this the most was in the comedy. This is easily the funniest film I've seen all year, and it had my relatively empty theater howling in laughter, and it used some of the most simple gestures to convey the most interesting concepts. It used comedy minimalism to an excellent degree, in which there were certain situations where they realized the funniest thing they could do was say nothing at all and just have the camera staring at their goofy ass face. But here's an important distinction. While you're laughing at these characters, the joke isn't necessarily on them. Most of these guys are idiots in some way, shape, or form. That's where a lot of the comedy comes from. And they're good at playing idiots, believe me. But the central thesis by the end of the film isn't to disparage them as much as it is to uplift them. In this way, the movie is able to elicit all the comedy they want to, but you still care about the characters, you still care about the story. It has a heart you can latch on which keeps you engaged. Lesser movies would blow things up for the sake of an easy laugh. What keeps this movie grounded is what keeps it funny, really. While these are all silly caricatures, they're all people you might run into in real life. I didn't play much baseball growing up, but I did play a lot of ultimate frisbee, which if you don't know is a sport. What I've learned from that is, at a recreational level, you're liable to encounter quite a few people like this. And I have to admit, that personal element made me enjoy the film more than the average person, possibly. But I will say that every technical was accounted for here, and while this is Carson Lund's first time in the directorial chair, I was massively impressed with the job he was able to accomplish. The sound design was the first thing that comes to mind here. It was used incredibly well in spurts to maximize its impact. Moments such as making a good play or making a bad play were especially notable because they were able to capture the emotional high of it all. Something that makes baseball such a cinematic sport, I think, is that there is a lot of downtime. This downtime can be used for dialogue, or it can be used to capture your surroundings, depending on what position you play on the field. It makes for variety and rises into action. The sound design utilizes this well and is able to capture a series of different scenarios that make the story better characterized. The editing was also good at this, and it was instrumental in the comedic timing of many scenarios. It held longer than you think it should have, drawing out the stupidity of a comment the character would make and showing how nobody around them gives a fuck about what they're saying, which makes it even funnier. Holistically, the edit also does this great trick of starting fast, starting snappy, and then slowly dragging out the pace as the day goes on, as a way of illustrating the character's declining endurance. At first I was nervous about the pacing, but really looking back, it was expertly well done. Lighting as well I thought was very creative. While it was a realistic style, the characters were constantly creating situations that were visually interesting without distracting from what was going on in the story. The cinematographer also did a great job of capturing light in its natural habitat, using shadows to diversify what's going on screen. As far as shot selection goes, I thought it was very good, although I don't remember it jumping out at me. In this scenario though, that doesn't bother me too much because it worked very naturally with the kind of film it was trying to be, and it had some beautiful shots of the natural setting which detailed the film in an interesting way. Not every shot has to be in your face to be good. I just found it passively great in the same way Spotlight cinematography was. And while I haven't been talking about the acting much so far, I just want to make it clear that these were some of the best comedic performances I've seen in the last couple years. It's hard to just pin down one guy, because really it's an ensemble production, but if I had to shout out a few, I'd say Theodore Bolokas, Brendan Burt, and Cliff Blake were some of my favorites. They were committed, and while they were virtually two-dimensional characters, their physicality brought a lot to the role. Actually, this is a pretty big thing I'd like to mention, that while I love the writing, most of these characters weren't particularly fleshed out. That's usually not a good thing, no? But that goes to show the variety of stories that can be told. It's not necessarily about any one character, but the entirety of the teams as a whole. Because of the little development, it puts even more pressure on the actors to make interesting decisions, which of course they end up pulling out. Some of the physical comedy here was also just insanely good. One guy falling over in particular is up there with the best crashes since Philip Seymour Hoffman in Along Came Polly.
Hey, did we sanitize this thing?
This man is in the house.
But that's all I have to say about this particular movie. It gave me everything I was looking for and more. It had heart, it had humor, it had loads of boomers. I don't know. I'm ready to wrap this up. I'm going to give this film an Oogway and a Squirt. It's a pretty textbook case for writers everywhere to latch onto. I think it proves how to break a lot of rules in narrative storytelling very well. Before I go, I just want to say a quick thank you for watching this video. It means a lot, especially for a small channel, for you to like and subscribe or to comment. Whether you liked the video or didn't, I just feel happy that you decided to watch as much of it as you did, and if you want more videos like this, there's a whole library of film reviews that you may want to check out. So, if you liked this movie, if you didn't like this movie, let me know what you think. I know many members of my audience are far smarter than I am, so I'm always looking for more interesting ways to analyze media. In the meantime, I will see you in the next video, and I wish you the best on your demons today.